I call this leadership studies. You know, Herbalife's been on this quest right from the very beginning to find leadership. People who can sell the product in a leadership role, not just sell it, but get people to use it, follow up. That's called the beginning of the leadership study. Then when you become a sponsor, you study how to be a good sponsor, giving that early information, because you're that first connection that someone has with Herbalife and the story. You know, they might have heard the story, the Mark Hughes story, but now you're the person who makes it real, either by telephone or in person. So learning to lead someone from what they don't know to what they should know, to give them advice on how to get started, how to get going, how to make it successful. You know, that's quite a responsibility. But that's what leadership is all about. Yes, it's a new opportunity, but it's also a new responsibility. And so I like to go through these leadership studies because we should all continue to be students. Many of you have already become leaders, but here's the key, and that is to be a student leader. Always studying ways to make your leadership more effective, your communication more dynamic, your understanding more expansive, your compassion a little deeper, your willingness to listen, you know, a little better, comprehending and turning it into something valuable that you can give back, that mechanism now starts to work better and better, working better as each year passes. A student leader. And leaders, of course, are not the only ones that need to be students. I wrote down here, the president needs to be a student. Mark Hughes has to continue to be a student. He was a founder of the company, but he's the student founder. He's the president now, but he's the student president. Continually looking for ways, whether it's style or content or product or presentation or understanding or a longer reach now than he had a few years ago. Mark is always looking for ways to be a more powerful leader of the company. Chairman of the board, what an incredible responsibility. You know, in the early years when he first got the title, that's one thing. But now, in a more mature way, he looks at this position of chairman of the board as a very incredible, responsible position. So he has to study ways now. Herbalife being traded, on the open stock exchange. All of those responsibilities he didn't have when the company first got started, but he kept being a student at every position. And of course, at his level, you can imagine what the demands are to keep studying the craft, to make sure you keep up with the latest, not only in the technology of developing products, but in refining the marketing, in doing business in such a variety of countries. So the responsibility of leadership, goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And wherever you find yourself today, myself in my position here, my position as a father, you've got to be a student father. If you're a mother, congratulations. I advise you to continue being a student mother. How could you be more effective as a mother this year versus last year? What new stories could you gather that would be valuable when you have a chance to talk to your children about some specific challenges or problems? That's called continually to being a student parent. So a student distributor, a student president's team member, a student global expansion team member. Now that you've gotten that new position on the tabulator team, study ways now to make that position so effective and so powerful and so to have such a unique reach that it won't take you long to get to millionaire team. And then you study that position, not just from the opportunity to earn the extra money. We say millionaire team, 2%, now 4%. And then to be worth the 4% in terms of your ability to communicate, your ability to lead, your ability to help people to grow. And then, of course, president's team, 6% extra. Being worth the 6% is more valuable than the 6%. But you must say, now that I've finally reached this position, president's team, I must now really intensify my studies, how to make this position valuable for myself, for the continuity of my family and my financial future, but also so that I build the right reputation for my organization. And now as president's team, I'm sure, reaching out to help other lines of organization, not just your own, helping the company to grow as well as your organization to grow. Then the big responsibility of Chairman's Club, studying, not just arriving at that position, not just getting the new pin, but saying, how can I be worth the honor and the extra pay? And how can I make my part of the Chairman's Club unique for my contribution? That continually requires study on your part. Learn the extra stories, do the extra reading, do the extra note-taking to make sure that you're not missing anything, especially in that prestigious position as well as responsible position. So that's what I'm talking about here now in being a leader. But now, here are some leadership studies, and I want to give you the list first, and then we'll come back and we'll go through this list and take them one at a time. Here's the first one, and that's be a student of possibility. Number one. Next, be a student of opportunity. Possibility is one study, opportunity is another study. Then third, be a student of ability. There's the company ability, there's the organizational ability, but I'm going to talk more personally here about your personal ability. Learning to recognize other people who have ability that no one else has encouraged, and now you have the opportunity to do so. Also recognizing your own personal ability. So we'll make that a part of our list. Here's the next one that's vitally important, and that's the study of inevitability. Some things at certain times become inevitable, and we'll go through that. And the last one is rationality. How to be a speed thinker. How to grasp problems and take them apart and put them back together in rapid fashion. How to ponder something and then make sure that it fits you, it fits your philosophy, it fits what you want to accomplish. Rationality, very important subject to study. So that's the list: possibility, opportunity, ability, inevitability, and rationality. Now let's start with possibility. I heard a sermon just a few weeks ago. Young Schuler, Dr. Schuler of the Crystal Cathedral, it was his son who was filling in for him and preaching a sermon. And of course I have lectured there for a long time, starting about 27, 28 years ago, and I'm always interested, especially when young Schuler is going to be on. He's remarkable. And here was the notes from his sermon. Now, I'm going to abbreviate it, but I think you're going to get the points that I'm going to cover here. I thought it was one of the classic sermons I've ever heard. And it had 3 major points. Not 30, just 3. But they were so classic, and here they were for your notes. Number 1, if you think it's impossible, it isn't. That was his first point. Point number 2, if you think you know everything, you don't. Number 2. Here was number 3. If you think you're alone, you're not. I thought those are some classic points. If you think it's impossible, it isn't. If you think you know everything, you don't. If you think you're alone, you're not. Now, under the title, If You Think It's Impossible, It Isn't, he told a unique story. It's the story of Rich DeVos, founder of Amway. Rich DeVos needed a heart transplant. Critical. Young Schuler said, my father went to offer a prayer for Rich DeVos. And when he got there, he said, Rich, a little difficult to pray this prayer because for you to get a new heart, somebody has to die. And he said, well, I guess we'll just pray the good Lord's will be done. Now fast forward. Rich DeVos gets his heart transplant. That's one part of the story. But here's the rest of the story that's remarkable. Later, and not too long ago, Rich DeVos has the opportunity to have dinner with the lady who gave him her heart. You say, that's impossible. When I heard this, that's exactly what I said. The congregation that listened to the sermon, this is exactly what they all said. Impossible. You couldn't possibly have dinner with the person who gave you their heart. Here's what happened. There was a lady who needed, I believe it was a liver transplant. And many times it's best if the liver and the heart go together in a transplant. So someone who dies has donated their organs. This lady gets the liver and the heart as a single transplant. And now her heart is left over. And her heart goes to Rich DeVos. And that's how it was possible for Rich DeVos to have dinner with the lady who gave him her heart. Fantastic story. 20 years ago, couldn't have happened. Now, it's impossible. We say it's impossible, but it isn't. No telling what technology will do in the years to come. No telling what your faith can produce. No telling what can be done. That was a great point. If you think it's impossible, it isn't. Then the next point was classic. If you think you know everything, you don't. How often we've learned this, right? From the time we were just young until probably the present time, to where there were times along the way when we thought we knew it all. You know, we thought we knew everything. We thought we had it down. We thought we had it made. You know, we thought we had this one locked. And sure enough, we were surprised later that we didn't know everything. We thought we had the answer to this problem. We thought we had all the answer. But as it turned out, sure enough, we didn't have all the answers. Always surprised, thinking we know everything, thinking we've got it. Then sure enough, something comes along to prove us wrong. But that's how we grow. And you know, our own ego at times wants to believe that we do have the answers, that we've arrived. And then a touch of humility has to come to prove to us that we really don't know everything. We think we know everything about our business, but I'm telling you, we have a lot to learn. No telling what we can do if we keep this learning process. So that was a valid point. If you think you know everything, you don't. But this next one was good. If you think you're alone, you're not. Interesting. The Pledge of Allegiance in America says one nation under God. As a country, we really believe that. That in America, you know, we are not alone. And sometimes all alone, meaning by yourself, doesn't mean that you are alone. Somebody's prayer reaches you. Someone's spirit reaches you. Someone's presence, even though they're not there, you know, you sense it, you feel it. The telephone rings and you pick it up, and something told you that this was going to be a call from someone that you've wanted to hear from. That unseen magic that I talked about in my San Francisco presentation. It's always there. So we do believe. When you think you're alone, you're not. Sometimes when I finish a rally or the extravaganza or some other presentation, here's what I say to everyone in my audience. I promise you when I leave here tomorrow, I will not leave you behind. I will take you with me in my thoughts and in my heart. And everyone senses that sure enough, I won't leave him behind. When I get together with my grandkids and my children, I will relate to them this experience. So the presence of this experience, the dynamics of this experience, the place we're meeting in, all of this, you know, I will take all of this with me, and especially the spirit, the collective spirit of everybody that was here that made it so unusual. I take that with me. I not only take it with me, jumping on the airplane to fly back to America, I take it with me wherever I go, and every time I share the story, someone is impressed, someone is affected because I didn't leave my audience behind. Then often I ask, How many of you have my name in your notebook, in your journal? Everybody raises their hands. Then I say, after we leave here and the lights are out and the place is dark, I go with you. My name is in your journal. But not just my name and not just my notes, hopefully, but my spirit, my good wishes, my prayer for you. I want my presence to follow you so that when you relate to someone else the notes you've taken from one of my presentations, not only will the notes be there, but the spirit will be there. So I thought this was an excellent point that young Schuler had. If you think you're alone, you're not. So first is the study of possibility. How many times did how many people say over the last 20 years about Mark's project of taking this incredible nutritional story around the world? How many of them said impossible? I'm telling you, the list would be staggeringly long, especially in the beginning. The list was this long that said impossible. In fact, some that were invited to join declined because they thought it was impossible. How could a young kid, 23 years old, only went to the 9th grade in school, never graduated high school, no college, no university, no formal training to run a company. How could he have the audacity to say, I've got a product, we're going to take it around the world? They said impossible. They didn't join. They missed out on the possibility. So be a student of possibility. You never know in whose hands is the idea. You never know in whose head and whose heart is the idea. If it's in the right person's heart, the most incredible things can happen. We're a witness of that over the last 20 years. Now here was the next one. Possibility is one study. Let me finish now the rest of these. Next is to be a student of opportunity. Opportunity means springtime, to be able to recognize this is a good time. Those early distributors that joined, I'm telling you, this was part of their perception. This sounds like a great story. Mark sounds incredibly sincere. This might just be the time. That was back when, herbs was, not the most well-known, thought-out, superstar study of the day. But I'm sure those early distributors thought maybe this is the time when not just other nutrition that we've heard about, but herbal nutrition and all of that, this may be the time, this may be the moment. And they recognized it as spring. They also recognized it as spring for them because Mark brought them the financial opportunity. When he said, I'll teach you everything I know, and I'll teach you everything I learn as we go. They picked up on that, those early distributors, and said, hey, this could be the spring we've been looking for, with all of the components to make spring unique as we see it through the summer and harvest in the fall. They seized the moment, and that's what you must do with opportunity, is to seize the moment. Whether the moment might be someone you see standing there and you say, I should introduce myself and tell my story, or at least say hello and see if the window will open a new opportunity. I had that chance just not long ago. The gardener who takes care of some of my my landscaping. And, I hadn't talked to him before, and I thought this is a good opportunity. And I told him about Herbalife, and I told him about Mark Hughes, and I told him about my position, and I told him, what was happening, some of the things currently that was happening. Just incredible. His eyes lit up, and soon he's becoming an Herbalife distributor. But seizing the moment, not letting opportunity slip away. Be a student of when it's the right time. Be a student of when this is the moment. This could be the year. The first 3 months of the next year to set up the year 2000. You say, I'm going to recognize this as a new opportunity for me to really pour it on these first 3 months. I'm calling it springtime. Putting together an artificial spring. In an industrialized society, it's hard to recognize when is spring, when is summer, when is harvest. So sometimes you have to sort of manufacture a spring. When we open up a new country, of course, now it's springtime. But if you've been going along and you've been a distributor like here in America for, quite some time, just create a spring and say for the next 90 days, springtime. We're going to call it the spring campaign, a heavy recruiting effort, a heavy customer base effort called springtime. learning to recognize opportunity, be a student of opportunity. Now, here's the others. Next is ability. Human ability, as we, ponder and think back over as much history as, we've mastered of what human beings have done in the last 6,000 years, and especially what human beings have done that we know more particular about the last couple of hundred years, since the birth of America, especially us who are Americans. But the last, let's say, 1,000 years of the Renaissance, walking hopefully out of the Dark Ages, when there was a whole burst of freedom, of thought, craft, artist, genius, music. It seems like all of these unique architecture, all of these things sort of began to awaken almost simultaneously. And within a few short years, everything seemed to be bursting forth like a variety garden called the Renaissance. But that helps us to understand, pardon me, that human ability is just incredible. Given the right moment, given the right opportunity, given the right climate, given the right season, human beings can think, create, and do the most extraordinary things. That's general ability. In Herbalife, we've watched people who no one gave them a chance, but no other opportunity had ever tapped their unique ability. It was there, but it was undiscovered. It was there, but it was unapplied. It was there, but it was lost in confusion. It was there, but nobody ever recognized it. It was there, but nobody offered them a helping hand saying, come, we'll teach. Nobody offered the opportunity to say, come, we'll recognize. We will help you start, we will help you build. Not having that opportunity before and now having it, we've watched the most extraordinary things happen with people who seemingly others said didn't have the ability, but sure enough they did. Now it's awakened. There's a unique story talking about incredible ability of a university student who was being given an incredible award. He was in mathematics, and this was an incredible award of mathematics, and the ceremony was extra special. And here's why. This young student in his mathematics class one day was just sort of nodding off, and when he sort of woke up, the class was leaving. So he gathered up his books and prepared to leave, and then he looked up at the blackboard and saw two mathematical problems. When he looked at these two mathematical problems on the board, he thought, well, that's the assignment, for the next class. I better jot those down. And so he jotted down those two problems, mathematical problems, and then hurried out with the rest of the class. When he got home that evening, he started working on these problems. And he said, these are the toughest mathematical problems I have ever seen. There seems to be no answer. There seems to be no answer. And he worked with both of them. And he just literally almost tore his hair out saying, at first they seemed fairly simple, but I can see right now there is no answer. There is no answer. But finally, one of them that he had really struggled with, he finally found the answer, or thought he had the answer. And he, packed up his notes, and when the next class was opened up, he offered his paper to the teacher. And little did he know, when he offered his paper to the teacher looked at what he had done, and he said, I jotted those two mathematical problems down. He said, I've wrestled with them. There didn't seem to be any answer. Finally, I got a breakthrough on one of them, and here's the best I can do. Well, the teacher was astounded. And the reason is because the teacher had put up on the blackboard the two mathematical problems that the world had said was unsolvable. These were the two mathematical problems that could not be solved, and everybody agreed. And lo and behold, the teacher checked, and for sure, he had solved one of the world's unsolvable problems. Now, and he was getting this incredible award for having solved this problem. Now, here's the unique part of the story. When he wrote those two problems down and took them home to go to work on them, he didn't know that they were two of the world's mathematical unsolvable problems. Great story. The human genius is limitless. The possibility for thought is so incredible. The unique thing about thought and spirit, it has no restriction. It has no, it's not like, a physical body moving through space and time. You can only go so fast. An airplane now can only go so fast. Even the speed of light can only go so fast. But here's what's incredible. Thought and spirit, travels faster than the speed of light and has components that, nothing else can match. The law says that, two bodies cannot occupy the same space at the same time. It's impossible. It's either one or the other. But what's amazing is when you share, you receive. Instantaneously giving out and getting back, it's so extraordinary. These are the possibilities of the human brain, the ability to think and to ponder and to wonder and to figure things out. Now here's what I want you to discover in this study, and that is your own ability. Part of it you discover as you go. That's what happened to Mark. When he first got into sales, in the clothing store, he found out he could, represent a product and he could do pretty good. And that was a discovery for him. He figured it, beat being a mechanic, working on a car, working in a nice place, meeting people, which he loved to do anyway, and learning to sell, a man a suit of clothes, started to awaken in Mark some of that ability that he had. And if he hadn't gotten that job, who knows? He might have gotten off into something else and that wouldn't have really started to tap his unique abilities. Then, of course, when he put the Herbalife program together, those abilities that were there all the time started developing, and he soon discovered, hey, I can do this and I can do that. Not only can I do all of this, I can do all of this. And when it reaches this level, now I've got the confidence that since I've mastered this, I can master the rest, I can master the rest. And that's not only the Mark Hughes story, that's everybody's story. Skill by skill, language by language, ability by ability, yours can grow just as well as Mark's or anyone else. You've got it. The key is to use it. And with your Herbalife experience, that's the best place to test your ability. Yes, you can learn to do this, but how about this, and how about the next step, and how about the next step? Don't stop. Now that you've gotten started, don't stop on your journey to study and tap and utilize your own personal ability. Now, to finish up, here's a couple of more. Next is, as leaders, we must be students of inevitability. What is inevitable? Here's a little scene. 300 feet from Niagara Falls in a little boat with no motor and no oars. We call this scene inevitable. It's over. If you find yourself in such an unfortunate position, it's already lost. 300 feet from Niagara Falls, little boat, no motor, no oars. It's over. It's already done. Even though you haven't crashed over the falls, even though that experience hasn't yet occurred, you're now in this unfortunate position, and it's called inevitable. I raise this issue because what you don't want to be caught in is in those inevitable positions where either through carelessness or whatever, rather than find yourself 300 feet from Niagara Falls, if someone would have painted the roar of the falls sufficiently for you way upstream, or maybe they had seen an experience of someone who reached that inevitable point, and then they were lost. If enough of those scenes were painted, then you probably wouldn't have been so careless to have found yourself in that position. And that's really what life is all about, learning from the experiences of others that have either witnessed or have been in these, inevitable positions where because of mistakes and because of failure and because of carelessness, they have found themselves in this inevitable position, and sure enough, it was too late. For John Belushi, there reached a time when it was inevitable. He had crossed the line when his careless mistakes and his drug use and all the rest caused him to reach a certain point where, you cannot come back. You cross the line. We must teach our children that there are certain points in life that are inevitable. The disaster is inevitable. The heartbreak is inevitable. I learned it in economics. I found out early, you could make $5,000 a month and go broke. And way back then, $5,000 a month was a lot of money. And I used to say, how could you go broke if you made $5,000 a month? And the answer was simple: spend $6,000. And if you're making $5,000, it's easy to spend that other $1,000 and just not realize it. It just gets away. So it is easy to go broke making $5,000 a month, just spend $6,000. And it's inevitable. If you don't change your ways, if you don't recognize it soon enough, if somebody doesn't come along and sort of ring the alarm bells quick enough, sure enough, the inevitable will come, to spend more than you make. One of my friends says, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. And there finally comes a point when it's inevitable. So don't find yourself there, but be a student. If I keep up my present direction, where will it take me? If I keep up my present disciplines, or where will that take me? And my lack of disciplines accumulated over some period of time, where will that lead me? If you don't get enough of this nutrient, it's inevitable over a certain period of time. And this combined with this, now it is truly inevitable, someday too late. And unless there's some adjustment, like, being rescued by Herbalife, somebody to tell the story, you say, Mary, it's inevitable. So the key is to be a student of inevitability so that you don't find yourself in that impossible position where you've crossed the line and now it's too late. Next, and the last one, is to be a student of rationality. Learning to put things through your own mind. And we are usually only going to act on something that's important if it makes sense to us. Now, sometimes what makes sense to us leaves us still a little bit short of what we should know, for the full expanse of knowledge to do a lot more things. But we can only really move as quickly as things make sense to us. Sometimes we step out by faith, but it makes sense to us to use our little faith. It makes sense to us to take a chance. It makes sense to us to make the investment first and then hope for the harvest. But if it doesn't make sense, if it isn't rational, then we're probably not going to act. We have to learn to study, our own rationality, what makes sense to us, and then here's what is the opportunity we have, especially as Herbalife distributors, is to try our best to make it make sense to somebody else. If you make the presentation in such a way that it's obvious, it's logical, I can see it, it makes sense to me, that's the way it seems to be, so we will act on that. If you'll get good at that, I'm telling you, you can affect a lot of people's lives. Now, here's the best rationality. We call it common sense. Humans have been given this extraordinary ability to use their brain power to come up with what we call common sense. Right? Yes, I've heard all of this, but common sense tells me that looks like that's an exaggerated story, not a real story. Common sense tells me. So part of it is to trust your common sense, but also to be willing to expand your common sense. What seemed to be common sense, 4 or 5 years ago, was a little short. Now I understand common sense is to think of it this way and this way. So this subject of rationality is vitally important.